My 5-year-old grandson discovered that. He didn't realize it, but he knew it. He was sitting between his mother and myself one day. We were driving along, and he was hugging on his mama. And as he hugged on her, he pulled her hair. He was at an age where I guess he was afraid mama was going to leave him. And, you know, you mamas know how that is. So finally she said to him, "Chad, you must stop pulling my hair." And he said, "But Mama, I love you so much." And she said, "Swell, but stop pulling my hair." And I said, "Chad, why don't you give me some of that loving?" And he turned around and loved on Paw Paw. Then I said to him, "Chad, where do you get all that loving?" "I don't know, Paw Paw. I keep giving it away, and it keeps coming back." And it's beautiful and wonderful when the human heart can discover that at 5. But the world is filled with persons who have never yet been able to taste that. She was 14 when she came to our home for girls. Her first week there, she found 5 hiding places. Her favorite hiding place was in the old English basement of this old house, a hole about the size of a good-sized rat, I suppose. She discovered that she could wiggle back into that hole all the way to the outside wall and lie there in the darkness, and no one could find her. And she said, I would lie there and hear people running upstairs calling, "Sam, where are you, Sam?" Out in the fields and yards. And she said, and no one could find me, and I was safe. So there are those individuals who feel that they must hide from God and everybody else. And the darkness prevails. And Jesus said to his disciples, I send you forth as the light of the world. And the purpose of the light is to loose the roots of the darkness, not destroy those who it fills, but somehow, by the marvelous love of God, to bring a difference between the hate and the fear and the person, and to let them know that they are children of light and not darkness. Bob Tuttle, a contemporary theologian, says he sees hell as God's last evidence of grace. That hell is that hiding place that God allows those individuals to have who yet cannot face the light. Do you have one of those that you love? Not able to receive your love, and the more they need you, the more they reject you. The world is filled with those who seek hiding places, and it may not be in the basement of an old house, it may be in a plush apartment or an office building, and yet they hide and no one can touch them. And in the darkness, a fermentation goes on. The sense of rejection, fear, and guilt fosters all kinds of bitterness and hostility, and that initially is expressed outward, but then ultimately turns inward, and suicide is the result. And we have been sent as a people who are to be able by our very nature to set the captive free. The little girl wrote this poem at 14. O people, fury burns in me. Hatred wells and churns in me. I despise the chains you put on me. You think you've defeated me. Have you ever seen me cry? I hate every one of you and spit and curse at the thought of you. Disgusted I am one of you, satisfied to die. 14 years old. When she was 5, she stood on a Boston playground and screamed to the top of her lungs, I want to be mean. I want to be mean. And walked over and began to choke another child on the playground. I was born and reared in the church. And one thing has always hurt me about us church folk. It is that we play games. And I think the title of your book is a good title, Joe, because we play pious games. We play, aren't we all a lovely bunch of coconuts? And we really don't understand why the world doesn't beat our doors down to come and worship at our friendly church. Or why isn't the campgrounds overflowing with people who want to come to CFO? And the reason is that on the inside, they're prisoners. They're crippled. They are unable to reach out to you. They can only hide in the darkness. That's their identity. She was 17 and she came to me. Her grandmother brought her, and we walked down to the James River and sat on a log by the river, and I listened as she sang me a song on her guitar. And it was all about the loneliness and the despair, the blues. Then she said to me, the reason I've come to you is that I'm frightened. I'm frightened, she said, of what is on the inside of me. For she said, there's a wild animal in me ready to leap, and I do not know who it might leap upon. And I said to her, does this thing have a name? She said, it's hate. I said, who do you hate most? She said, my mom and dad. How long have you hated them? I don't know, she said. Before I started kindergarten, I remember lying awake thinking of ways I could kill my mom and dad. I once, she said, built a fire under my bed and shut the door to my bedroom and walked into the living room and sat down and waited for the house to burn up, that it might burn them up. Now, she said, I'm 17 and I'm physically able to do the things I've thought about all my life, and I'm terrified. And I said to her, I don't understand all of that, but I can say to you, if you will release the terror and the hate to Jesus, I promise you, he'll come in and touch you. And she looked at me and said, you don't understand, do you? You don't understand that if that goes, I'll die, for that's all I am. It's not a matter of people choosing not to be like you. It's not a matter of people choosing not to be loving or to receive love. It is that they have become prisoners. And so Jesus said, I have come to set the captive free. And this morning I just had on my heart the awareness of the hurt that is in our camp that will not disappear with the lovely songs and the calisthenics. but will require deep surgery. And only the sword of the Lord, the Word of God, and the Spirit of God can go deep to the bone marrow, discerning and cutting and healing in the same cut. And I share this not to put you in the pit, but to let you know there's hope for your situation. That no matter how great the despair is, maybe things you have not yet dared to share with anybody, some loved one or yourself, that there's hope. For God is all about not gathering up nice folk. For Jesus said, I haven't come for the well, I've come to minister to the sick. I've come to seek and to save the lost. And that's his commitment. And so there's the hope that the Spirit of God comes to plumb the depths of human despair and anguish and hate, and to bring that person up out of the pit into the dimension of kingdom living. And that's what we are about. And that's no little thing in our world. For our world today, its greatest need is to know there's hope. And the secularists say there is no hope. Are you aware of that? The fatalists say there is no hope. And there is hope. She won't mind my sharing this. Her name is Margaret. Margaret, from her earliest memory, lived with a very lovely Christian family in eastern North Carolina. She was an adopted child. But Margaret, from her earliest memories, also was tormented by her thought processes. At about 6, she was put under psychiatric care. And Margaret said, all my life, I kept hoping that the doctors would understand. But she said no one ever understood. I would share with them what was going in my head. It wasn't in the textbook. They didn't know anything about it. Her last psychiatrist was a Jew who said to her, Margaret, man cannot help you, only God can help you. And he prayed with her that God might somehow help her. At 22, the best psychiatrist at Duke University, who had tended her all of her life, said to her family, find an institution, lock her up, and forget about her. There's not any hope for Margaret. She's incurably insane. But her mother would not receive that. Listen, beloved, just because a guy's got MD after his name doesn't mean he's God. You know? That just means you've heard from the medical world, now hear from heaven. Often you hear two different stories. So the mother would not accept that. She just refused to accept it. And in her desperation, she called Betty, my wife, who directs Emmaus, the ministry for girls, and said, I have a daughter who's 22, and I cannot lock her up and forget about her, and there's no hope, no help. I just thought you might be able to help. And Betty said to her, but our program is for high school girls. We don't have any program for adult women. And the mother just insisted. Please, she said, I have no other hope. So finally, after about 2-hour phone call from North Carolina, Betty agreed to let Margaret come because she had an empty bed. And she said, I'll keep her until I'll need the bed, then Margaret will have to leave. Now, the mother did not tell Betty that Margaret had been in bedridden for 6 months in deep depression, and did not even know she could get her out of the bed to haul her 300 miles. But she did. The psychiatrist who prayed with Margaret opened the door for Margaret to begin to have a dream. And in the dream, Margaret said, I would see myself walking with Jesus down a cedar-lined dirt road. And this dream reoccurred after the prayers of the psychiatrist. And it was reoccurring in those 6 months of deep depression. And as they drove Margaret onto the 60 acres of Emmaus, there is a cedar-lined dirt road that curves up to the house. And that was the road that Margaret had been seeing in her dream. And hope leaped within her bosom. And the healing began right there. Betty was so busy, for a month she did not have an hour with Margaret. But the healing had begun. It took 2 years. 2 years of week after week, sometimes 4 and 5 days on end without a break, of ministering to this person, taking this person, going aside, and spending those days with her just to bring her out of suicide or hate. And in these years of ministering on this Emmaus Road, the Lord has taught us that the key to healing inner man is the commitment of another human being. No wonder Jesus said to his church, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I've loved you." It is the key to all healing and deliverance. It doesn't happen with a few words spoken, beloved. The key is commitment. Why? Because we become sick in human relationships, and it takes a human relationship to heal us. That's why the Word becomes flesh. The Word hasn't become Word, the Word's become flesh, and we are that flesh. I never saw a girl come to Emmaus that did not come saying, "I know you're a bunch of bull. And when you say you love me, you don't really love me. You just want to be able to tell me what to do. See? And one thing, you're not going to tell me what to do. Nobody's going to tell me what to do." And here's the nature of the darkness. I want what I want when I want it. Okay? You want to understand the darkness, that's it. And so they say, if I press you hard enough, and I hit you hard enough, your true colors are going to come out, and I'm going to discover you're just like everybody else. You don't give a damn about me. And there's only one thing that comes through the darkness. It's the cross. That's the ultimate, only evidence. What is that? It's not your ability to endure pain. It is your undeniable love for the person. One night in the healing process, as Betty ministered to Margaret, Margaret turned on her like an animal. And by this time, Margaret had learned everything about Betty, so she knew exactly how to hurt her. You know, if you're close to someone, you husband and wives, you parents and children, you know how to say the precise words that are going to hurt the most, don't you? You know how to just cut them down. And Margaret had learned that. And one night as she was in great need, and as Betty just laid her life down to her, Margaret just turned on her and just ripped it, spat on it. Things I can't tell you. You'd be so embarrassed, bless our hearts. We can't hear the awful things. Unbelievable things. And Betty turned and ran, and she said, for the first time I knew what an Emmaus girl felt like. I just wanted to run. And she ran through the yard, through the fields, down into the woods. It was in the night, and just fell on the ground and cried out, "Oh Lord, come and save me, or the darkness is going to take me." And I came home a week after that happened, and she said to me, "Darling, I laid on the ground and I cried out to Jesus, and he didn't come." "Why didn't he come?" And I said, "I can't believe that." She said, "Well, he didn't. And I said to her, what did you feel? What were you experiencing as you lay there? She said, the only thing I felt, the only thing I knew was the love and the pain I had for Martha. I said, you mean in spite of all that she did, the only thing you felt was the love you had for her? Well, honey, don't you see that's Jesus? That's all he really ultimately gives you. Well, that's the nature of Calvary. And ultimately, that's the only thing that's going to convince this old world and redeem it. Anybody here for Calvary this morning? Amen. That's what heaven gives to us. Our only weapon is Calvary. My dad used to put it this way: Jesus took the cross and beat the locks off the gates of hell. And he said to them, you're free. I set you free. Okay? I want to read you a little poem that the little 14-year-old girl wrote. Last night as I sat down at sunset, I remembered another sunset as we sat on the front doorstep of Emmaus and the sun was going down over the Rappahannock Valley, and I said to her, isn't that beautiful? She said, I think it's hideous. Because she said, when the night comes, the demons come out. Here was a girl who said, I have never awakened glad to be alive. I don't have one bad day once a month. I never have a good day. I never awaken, she said, glad to be alive. She saw ugly everywhere. You know, she thought ugly everywhere. A tiny ray of hope stirs in my heart. One spark of light invades the dark. A tinge of relief springs up inside. Maybe the hate is trying to die. A rustle of love comes deep from within. Maybe, just maybe, I'm starting all over again. Afraid to hope, afraid to believe. And then one night, this is a little poem, she drew some sketches, and across the page is a butterfly she drew. For one night she said yes to Jesus. It was on a college campus at a retreat much like this. And I stood on an oak tree. She ran from the meeting where we were in. Do you realize there are times when people are in a meeting like this and everything in them says, get up and get out of here. Run, run, run. And she ran. And I left the meeting and stood beneath an oak tree and watched her as she sat on the curbing and she hit her hand with her fist and cried, all right, Jesus. Okay, Jesus. I give up. I give up. And she just went limp. And I saw the Spirit of God come within her. She wrote this poem. I took from the stallion his spirit, from the star I took her light, from the lilac I took her beauty, and the quiet I took from the night. The demons before, now the quiet she takes from the night. I took from the robin the song that she sings, my heart in her wing I took flight. My soul took its place among beautiful things. From all of the world I took life. I stole from the wind her freedom, from the butterfly her grace. And the sunrise was robbed of her glory when I looked upon Jesus' face.
Placed on the table on the second side.
That incurably insane graduated this past June 15th from Earl Washington College with honors. There is hope, for God has come in all of his love and all of his power and has bestowed that upon his people. And we go a singing, and we go proclaiming, and we go as victors. And don't you ever forget it. Jesus Christ is victor. And in him we begin with victory. We don't have to work to it. You don't have to earn it. You walk into it as you walk into him.